this Zoom. I'm going to start recording right now.
Hi,
Here's
Maryalice.
Jahan.
I wished I looked
Look into the
better.
frame, sweetheart, so I can see you.
Hi, Maryalice.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
This is
Which
Maryalice.
one of the boys?
This is my grandmother, Maryalice. You, Jahan, my grandmother. Hey, this is
Oh, I'm very glad to meet you.
This is
Hello.
yeah. No, you
Hi.
didn't meet her. Yeah. This is Padma. Stop's
Hi.
mom.
Which one of the boys is this?
Jahan.
That's Jahan.
Yeah.
Jahan. Oh,
They drove down to her house to Maryalice's house. Oh, that's much better. Yeah, there we go. That's a good recording. They drove to Maryalice's house to go and visit.
you remember being at my house and climbing trees?
Yeah.
I remember too.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Yeah.
You look wonderful, Jessie.
Oh, it's great to see you. How has this pandemic year been?
Yes, I have some questions to ask you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to get to work.
You can
But
get to
I
work.
want-
You're gonna ask me questions, but you're the one who has the interesting story to record.
No, but you remember you wrote a book about the things that you were doing and the people you met. You had a little book about this big. And I wish you would do another one about what you're doing today. You know, what are some of the problems you're meeting, and how do you get the people to do they recognize them themselves first, or do you go in and help them to see what it is that's bothering them, and how do you get them to look at it and address it and then work with it?
Yeah. Well, I have written a lot about that, and I did actually write some chapters of a book about it about 4 years ago. I have to go back to it sometime. Maybe you'll inspire me to do that.
I only have the first one.
What is the first one? I don't know what you're talking about. What's the first one?
A little book, a book that you wrote and published.
When she was a girl, or when? Or recently?
What?
When Jessie was a girl, or more recently?
Oh, no, more recently, about your work in India.
Not really a book. I mean, it must have been a blog or an article. There's lots of that, and I can send it to you. Yeah, I mean, we write a lot. This year, we've written for some very good publications.
It would be wonderful to share that with the people around me, to tell them what kinds of things you're doing. I know you're more on the internet now, and I just don't know how you work, and it would please me greatly to know.
Yeah, I'll email you some things. Do you read on your computer sometimes? Do you read articles on the computer?
I do. I see you on computer occasionally when I see it.
Yes, when you get the emails with our newsletters. Yeah, I can send you some more links.
Okay, but I think a book would be that was published easily would be very interesting for other people to see, rather than just on the internet.
Yeah.
Because I remember the story you told about the women who couldn't use their husband's first name after they were married, and how you helped to resolve that. And that's very impressive to other people, that it's such a personal problem, but it's so important to the people who can't do it. you know, who can't call their husband by their name.
Well, I'm very touched that you remember that story.
Well,
That was a big part of our patriarchy campaign, anti-patriarchy campaign.
that's to the new young man who's appeared.
This is Paxi.
Hi, Paxi.
And there's Lavila.
We wish that you guys were here with us, with Grandma Maryalice. She misses you so much. We all miss you guys.
When are you coming back to the United States?
When are you coming back, Paxi?
In a month.
In when?
In a month. No, we're gonna be in Texas in a week or so.
You're going to go
So we're coming soon.
and you're going traveling with your grandma and with your mother and father?
Yep.
Yes.
Grandpa?
Yes.
They're going to see America and it's going to blow their mind. All the incredibleness of the American West. They won't believe it. They've never seen it.
No,
Really
and
nice.
it's wonderful.
Yeah. Stalin says hi. I'll go get everybody and ask them to come introduce themselves. And we'll introduce them to Maryalice. We have some of our correspondents in the house. They'll come introduce themselves. You'll be really interested to meet them.
I'm sorry.
You can't hear. Two of our community correspondents are here in the house. Stalin is with them. So I'll have them come and introduce themselves.
Okay.
And then we'll start. Then I want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Oh, so where's my mother?
Where's your mother?
Mom, Dr. wants to say hi.
Hi, Maryalice.
Here's Stalin.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
Huh? I haven't seen you.
Hi. These are
Hi.
some of our colleagues. This is Amrita
Hi.
and
The
Bidesini.
whole family. Hi.
Yeah. And
That's
also
amazing.
Harihar. And this is
Hi.
Harihar.
You're Jesse ki mom.
Oh,
And this is my mother. And this is my grandmother, Maryalice. She's 102 years old. Wow.
Hi, Francesca.
hi.
Hi. When did you guys arrive there?
Maryalice.
Hi.
I'm having, it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's so amazing to be able to see you, knowing that you're halfway around the world.
Yes, halfway around the world. It's nighttime here.
Jesse ki father.
Yeah.
Hi, Jack.
It's morning there.
Others, Don.
Hello, hello.
Where's
I don't have time to talk because I got to work on the exchanges that Jessica and you are having. I'm just joking.
I heard you're doing volume
That's an
translation.
open can of worms, Jesse, but it's it's sort of stimulated more stuff. Bob is so on top of all this. It's great.
Yeah. You're doing volume translation.
Yeah. Yes, and that too. So
All right.
yeah,
You guys-
these are some amazing people here. Maryalice Harihar lives in the tea estates in West Bengal, where they grow tea. Where they
I
grow
she's listening to
tea.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Yes.
But Maryalice maybe can't hear everything I'm saying. Can you
I
hear
don't
me?
know.
It's a little
My
hard to hear.
hearing aids don't always
Don't
work.
work. Okay. Anyhow, I just wanted to introduce some of our correspondents so you can see some of the work and our colleagues.
Hi.
All right. You guys have a good chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Maryalice, I have wanted to do this for years. And this pandemic has taught all of us to use Zoom and to be able to record live conversations. So finally, I can record an interview with you, which I've wanted to do forever. So tell us how, let's see, there we go. That's perfect.
Now-
That's very
Now
nice.
record somewhere.
No, it is recording. It's already recording. Don't touch anything. Okay, great. Sorry.
I have something that I would like to say to you that I think is very important. I have just learned, and I've talked to your mother and father and everybody about it, so they've heard it before. But everything that's happening tends to move us inside of ourselves and to think about in a narrow sense. And what we need in every situation is an expanded understanding, an expanded looking for new horizons, new answers, new things to expand our knowledge, expand our thinking. And if we do that, we will find new ways to solve problems, new things. And without that kind of expanded thinking, things don't happen. You don't do anything by standing pat. You have to move away. And since I've been thinking that way, just for a couple of years, my whole world has been more exciting, more invigorating, and more fun. Even with COVID, I see something and I don't start to mutter about it or complain. I start to think, how do we change it? And that, to me, is one of the most important things I've ever learned in my whole life. And I pass it on. You've been doing it in for years.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes I feel like I can lose my optimism. So it's amazing to know that you have kept it all these years and you're still hopeful and you are still waking up and thinking, how can I create a change today? How can I do something today to help expand the knowledge? That's amazing, Maryalice. Thank you for that.
As you expand knowledge, you may find answers you didn't expect.
Yeah.
But that's what I tell everybody these days. I'm glad.
So what do you do every day these days during the pandemic? What was the pandemic like? Who do you see? What do you do every day?
Well, I'm old and I don't get around very much. And so I have an aide who comes 5 days a week, and a friend named Donna who comes the other day. And she is grandmother and she has 2 small children. And I have become a grandmother to the little ones. And so I hear all about their escapades and all their life. And I get letters from them and through their mother. And so I have a kind of extended grandchildren, would be like you would be if you were here.
Yes. Great.
So, but I work my crossword puzzle, as you know. Every day you have to do a crossword puzzle. And other than that, I don't do much.
I've never done a crossword puzzle in my entire life.
Oh,
Maybe that's your secret. I don't know. I can't do them. I have some games that I play on the phone, like Sudoku. And the New York Times has a game where you make a word, but I can't do crosswords.
oh, I should. if I ever when I see you again, we're going to do a crossword puzzle.
Do you know how to play bridge?
Yes?
That's another thing I would
bridge.
like to learn how to do, is learn how to play bridge.
I learned to play bridge when I was 8 years old. And we were up in the mountains. And my family were playing, and I was sitting on my father's lap. And a hand came in. Now, this was before it was contract and before there were all these things. You just played. And he said, "Would you like to play it?" And I said, yes. And I played this whole hand with adults, and I did it right. And of course, that was a major reason to keep playing.
Wow. So you were really good at it at age 8.
Well, we played it, it was the major game when I was in college. The world has changed so much. But that and was just part of life.
Yeah, we played bridge. It sounds like a good double date. Playing bridge, couples bridge.
Your grandfather, John, loved to play bridge. He was exciting about it.
He loved to play bridge. Yeah, yeah.
And he and his brothers all played together too. But, you don't get together, maybe you do, but children don't get together to play bridge, to play games anymore the way they did.
Yeah, kids play chess, and now there's a lot of chess online, which kids enjoy. And of course, the kids play lots of video games. So actually, they really love games, just different games.
But they don't play them with other young people, do they?
They play them online with other young people.
But I mean,
yeah,
boys don't have other boys come to play and spend the evening playing together.
No, now they want to put on a screen. And in the beginning of the pandemic, it felt a little bit like the time you are describing. We played cards every night. We did lots of puzzles. We ordered lots of puzzles. They both of the boys play piano, so we would play piano every night, or we would have dance night. Now they've gotten pretty addicted to their screens, so they would rather have their screens. And the school has gotten a little bit harder because there's more homework. The school has learned how to do the online school a little bit better. So now there's no time. But we're coming and we're having the vacation. And then we were talking today about what games should we bring on the vacation. We'll play lots of rummy. I like to play rummy, which you taught me rummy. I didn't know how to play rummy before that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We used to play, John and I used to play a game called Spite and Malice, which is a game you play with cards. And we would play it at night. And there was a way you could kind of play so that the other person couldn't play. And that's the malice part. And we would play it, and he would try to get me, and I would try to get him. And we'd play all evening. And then whoever won was fine. But we played it when people came from China, families came to visit. We played that game with everybody. It's a game, we did it, we were on a ship in some people how to play it. And we had to go to a meeting, and 2 hours later, a group of people were still playing the game, but they weren't the same people we started with. It's kind of one of those games you can play.
Yeah.
I should make a copy of it, or I should make the list and show you how you can play it with your boys and everybody.
Okay, well, we'll try that. Spite and Malice. Yeah, we'll look it up.
And it's just, you just play it with ordinary cards, but you play it, you need to have 2 or 3 decks and you mix them all up.
Uh-huh. And how many people can play? Can
Any number, 2, 3, 4, 5,
a lot of people can play. That's really fun.
a lot of people, and they can play it whether they speak English or not. It's not a language game. You have to be able to count.
So Maryalice, I want you to tell me about your research that you did in Africa, the art therapy research. That was really important. I know you've written quite a bit about it, but talk about it.
Well, I have a box of things that are here, 2 boxes of things that contain all of the research that I did. And when I started, there were no emails. It was 1960. There was no internet. And when I went to a country, I flew in, and you knew very little about the country because books had been written, but it took a certain amount of time to write, to find the information for a book, then write the book, then publish it and get it to a library. So it was, the information I had about a country was about 20 years old before I got there.
Right.
And it was very different. I didn't, when I started, I went to Japan to sort of get acquainted with how to live in a different culture before I started researching. And we got off the ship, and there wasn't any kind of, we just walked off. We didn't have any kind of surveillance or check that we'd gotten off. And the people who came to meet me had been here for there's my phone, had been here for years, it was years, and I knew nothing. They had to come 60 miles to meet me. And it never occurred to me that they had to come, and that they had to come on
on the bus. Did they take the bus?
On a train. They had to come on the train to meet me. I'm sorry, that it didn't end up very well. But
on the internet, you were saying that they'd come to visit you on the internet, because that's what we're using right now to visit.
But it was just, I never knew. I just went from one person to the next person, and I never knew exactly who I was going to meet or what I was going to do or where I was going to be. And we always moved from that person, from that to the next place. And I got to Indonesia, for example, and they had denied my visa. But some people were there and they said, well, we'll fix it, because my passport had come with all the VIPs that were coming from around the world. And so they just let me in. And I went to live with this American family that I'd never met before. And then they put me up into the mountains to a place where they'd never had a white person before. And I went down, they took me on a car down to a place where I worked with the children. The children had only seen one other white person in their life, and they were delighted to paint, and would just come and some of the older girls would come and bring their baby sisters with them. And when it was time to leave and we had to wash the brushes, I get them washed, they'd run down to the rice field and wash the brushes in the rice field and bring them back all nice and clean. And then we'd meet the next day and start over again. And it was just, you just never knew from one day to the next what you were going to do or how you were. Well, you did, once you started, you saw the same children for a week or 2 or 10 days. And then I have all the pictures that they painted, and I exchanged those for balloon. And of course, they loved the balloons. And then I went from there to Africa. And it was the same there. I had somebody, I had known people from who were, oh, my mind goes blank sometimes. Oh, they were from Pennsylvania.
From Pennsylvania.
Well, anyway, this is a group of that were working in Australia,
And it's from Africa.
yeah, but they were working in
Where you were in Tanzania? What country were you in?
I would take my paint and I would go into an area where there were no resources, no churches, no schools, no services for the family. I would go in and I'd live with a family and I would take paints and the children would paint for me, and then they'd do 2 pictures and I would exchange those for that. And I was trying to find out what sparked children to be creative. What was the thing that happened in the brain? We know where it is and how it works, but we don't understand what it was that does it. When you show a child something and they respond to it, we don't know what it is that works it. And I was trying to find children who had never had an experience like this, give them a brand new experience, and then see what they did with it. You know, these were children who didn't get letters, they might have a picture of the mother and father on the wall, but they had no books, nothing, and they'd seen no books. There were no schools. So I would go from one community, live with them for a couple of weeks, then go to another community in another country and do the same thing. And haven't you heard all this before?
Yes, but I'm happy to hear it again.
Because I would tell it better 20 years ago. No, but I think one of the things was I was on a bus one night, and the bus, we stopped for dinner, and this was in between going up to Kilimanjaro, in that area. And the bus driver, somebody that I met at the hotel, said, you know, I'm going in the same direction, and if you would like, I'd drive you, and you could be just the 2 of us in a car. And I asked the bus driver what he thought of that idea, and he said, oh, he's a very nice man. Why don't you go? And so I got in this car with this total stranger to go out across the part of Africa that was uninvolved. And all of a sudden, the man's car stopped dead. And we're in the middle, you can't see anything, not a light.
Oh my gosh.
Don't worry, they're coming along the same route and it'll come along later. And pretty soon the bus came and it had the lights, and they looked in the man's car, and the road was so rough that his battery had become loose. So they said, well, we've got to fix it. What do we have? Does anybody have any tape? And I said, I have adhesive tape in my baggage. And would that work? Oh, that would be fine. So we went in in the bus, got my baggage, undid it, got the tape out, put the tape on the battery, put my baggage back in the bus, and we drove off and got um, to the base of Kilimanjaro by 8 o'clock instead of by midnight. I mean, crazy things that you would never do today.
Carrying a car with adhesive tape. Yeah.
Hmm?
Using tape to repair a car battery. That's kind of incredible.
Well, but that you carry it with your incidentals that you might need to if you had an accident. You
Yeah,
know, if you
yeah,
cut
yeah.
yourself.
So where are all these pictures now that the children took? Do you still have
They're all, I've put them all on tape, and they're all on there's a computer there with them all listed on, and they're all named, and it tells where the child sat in relation to the paint, because I put two boards down with paper and the paint between them, and I was facing the children, and I kept where they were in relation to the paint and where they were in relation to the paper, so that you could see, did they go from left to right or right to left, or did they start at the top, how they did this, because I was just trying, these are children who've never seen this before, and I wondered what they would do. And if there had been a school in the area, or there had been any kind of, like in India, where the children had seen writing, they would start to make zeros and ones. They thought of that as what ought to be on a piece of paper. But in other places, they didn't do that. They would do something different. So I have all that recorded so that someday, if somebody got interested, they could do something with it.
Wow.
And it's all tape, all recorded in these boxes and envelopes and everything there.
And you think many of them had never seen drawings before. I mean, they didn't actually know what you did with this little box of red watercolor and blue and yellow watercolor. That's very interesting.
This was tempera paint that I took. One of the stories that I feel is most important is that with one family, I stayed for 2 weeks, which was about usual. And 37 years after John had died, I went back to Brazil and tried to find the family. And through a series of different experiences, we found the family that I had lived with. They had moved and had done differently. And we took a car and walked up. And when I got out of the car for that family, a young woman got out and she said to me, you left in the middle of the night and you never even said goodbye, which was absolutely true. The car that had come to pick me up, I didn't have a car, had come and gotten me at 9 o'clock at night after the children had gone to bed, and I wasn't going to wake them up and leave them crying. And so she recognized me immediately after 37 years. And you don't think that you've had an impression on somebody. You think about what you have remembered, but you don't stop to think of how much 2 weeks meant to a group of children who had nothing. And one of the little boys who was very bright, and I have his paintings, one day they brought a truck came, the people that I lived with had a little store, and a truck came and brought some supplies. And that's the only truck we saw while I was there. But I took a box that they had and I made pictures of wheels on, and I put the little boy in the box and made him pretend it was a car, and he played in it all day. And guess what he does as an adult?
He's a
He
mechanic.
owns a bus company.
He owns a bus company.
And I know that what I did that day with that had a deep effect on him.
Yeah, I can relate because we give cameras to people who've never used cameras, but they've all seen film, right? They've all seen television, they've all seen film, but you were dealing with a different level of media
Nowadays,
innocence, exposure, if these children didn't actually know what these colors did.
yes, but you see, this didn't, at that point, there was no way, there was no television, there was nothing like that. There was no such thing. I mean, they didn't have a telephone. They didn't go to school. There was nothing. You were out,
There
they
was
didn't even have toys to play with. Anyway,
Can you remember any of the differences between the Japanese children and the Indonesia children and the Africa children in what they drew?
no, I didn't use Japanese children because in Japan, almost 90% of the children went to school. There were schools, and I didn't find a group. The Indian children tended to use black more often because they had pictures on the walk and pictures around wherever you went, even out in the boonies. You saw things written, figures drawn on the walk. So I didn't get that. I got more black in the pictures, but I have not. When I came home, there was no such thing. I mean, I had to go back to work, and there was no way that you could. I could begin to assess the information without an internet. You know, I couldn't sit down and line up things. And so it just got put away. And then later I have recounted and reserved and saved all the information and put it in boxes so that if ever somebody wanted to explore it, they could. And I have papers that I wrote, you know, trying to describe what I might find if I did the research, what was going to happen. But it was just a dead end kind of thing. But in terms of me personally, it was a whole unbinding, expanding experience.
Yeah. It's a very important archive, I'm sure. And a lot of people today are studying what's the impact of people's first exposures to different technologies. They study the way that children, the way a child picks up a cell phone and what do they do with it and what buttons do they press. It's like user experience. You were doing user experience with
I was trying
in the 1960.
Yeah, well, I was trying to find out what was happening, what it was that created the interest in the children, that stimulated what they did and how it would be different in different places. But nowadays you couldn't do that because with the internet and with the world the way it is, you've already things that you could stimulate a brain with that the children haven't already experienced in some way.
Yes.
Really. One other thing that I don't know whether you know or not, but I went, and this is really important. I got a grant from the Rotary Club when I came home to return to South America and to do this same thing within the South American continent. And I went first to Nicaragua, which is and I went up in this, what appeared to be the boonies. We rode mules and got to this place. And I lived with this family and we worked with the children, and they were absolutely wonderful. The stories are just tremendous. And when I left, the little children came and the men they'd gone out in the fields and found flowers, and the little boys would bow and the girls would come and curtsy to say thank you to me for having been there. They were so delighted. And the men in the family had taken me up into the fields and had found a Spanish to English dictionary, and they had offered to build me a house and build a school if I would stay and live with them. They would take care of me if I would stay with them and continue to teach their children. Well, I had to go back, of course, to Nicaragua. And when I got there, I had somebody from the news had given me, from the Rotary Club, had asked me to go talk to the newspaper. And the newspaper had given me a piece of paper that when I came to go home, cleared the way for me to come home. I didn't have to ride a mule or do anything. And I went to thank him. And when he heard what I had done with that, he said, "You have to meet the president of Nicaragua, the General Somoza. He's having reception tomorrow night, and I will see that you get an invitation." And I said, "I don't have clothes. My wife will meet you tomorrow and you will go out and buy clothes to go to this reception." Well, I was waiting in the hotel that morning, and a lady came out of the upper story and said, "Senator Kennedy has been assassinated." And everything stopped. And I never got to meet General Somoza. But being a totally unrelated kind of person, to have gone in and worked for 2 weeks with children and do something that was important enough that people thought I should talk with the president
Yes.
is to me amazing. So what I was doing was important, even beyond the research. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You've been so patient to listen to all this.
It's a great story. And I can relate to it. I had similar adventures in India, and maybe I'll talk about them too to my great-grandchildren so many years later from now, if I'm lucky enough.
Well, I hope you will record them in some way and tell them.
Yes, not wait that long. Yeah, yeah.
You have to put them down because they are, I can't write them anymore. And at the time there wasn't time.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
You are so beautiful. I can look at you. I don't have to look at me.
Oh,
Thank you for listening.
okay. Yeah, well, let's not stop. What else can you tell us? What else should we talk about? There's 100 years to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Maryalice. So what would you say is one of your earliest memories that you can remember?
Claudia, come in the frame. We can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't know you were there.
Hi. I was just curious. I've been wondering what is kind of, because she has lived through so much, what is maybe one of the, earlier memories that you remember that made you happy?
Oh, there's so many. Um, you know, we lived such a different life. Life was I lived in a small town, and we'd had dirt road in front of the house, and they put men came to put tar on it, and we decided to have a lemonade stand. My mother made lemonade. I'm sure she hated it after those men were there for a couple of days, and we sold lots of lemonade. And
Work.
my arm was sore from squeezing all. That's the kind we did. It was I walked to school and came home for lunch, and I love my teachers.
Do you remember any teacher in particular that stood out to you?
I remember two. One was my kindergarten teacher, and a couple years later, she retired, or she quit, and she had a family, and I used to go over and visit her. And then the other teacher, which is really the one I think of the most, was a Jewish woman, and I say that not with negative feeling. She was absolutely had no personality whatsoever. She had dark hair. She would push her hair to the side like this, and she always wore the same clothes day after day after day, but she taught Latin. And if you knew your Latin for the day, you could go into class and sit. And if you hadn't done your studying, you told her. And if you told her, she wouldn't call on you till the next day. But if you tried to get away with it, she would suddenly know that you couldn't, and she would call on you to translate, and she would make you struggle through and take time. And then she would say to you, if you had studied, you wouldn't have wasted all the class time. And then we didn't get as much done for the rest of the day. Whereas if everybody had studied, you got through and you got all your studying for the next day was already done. So you didn't have to study if you were ahead. So constantly we were studying 20, 30, 40 lines ahead every day.
Just to be prepared.
Just so we wouldn't embarrass everybody in the class.
What time did you go to school? Do you remember?
Oh,
was
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock? And what time were you guys done?
It depended. In the afternoon, it was 3 o'clock when I was little, but when you went to high school, it was 8 o'clock till noon. Only went half a day.
Wow.
That was because the school was so crowded, and you went either in the morning or you went in the afternoon.
Yeah, a lot of Indian schools are like that. They have a morning session and an afternoon session.
Well, the afternoon session was for the freshmen and sophomores, and when you got to be a junior, you went in the morning.
Uh-huh.
That was just the way it was. But life was very dull, really.
Did you ever have any pets?
Well, we had a cat, but not very often because my parents didn't like it. But the people next door had a beautiful cat named Mitzi, and Mitzi had 7 toes and would come and rub against your legs when you were trying to work.
That's a cat.
It had long hair,
This was in Syracuse or in Buffalo? Where was this?
Was in Binghamton.
In Binghamton. Yeah,
The
wow.
people who lived next door at that point owned the big grocery store, which would be like the Publix or the of the area. And
Mm.
it was big, and they had a cat. And every year they would let the cat have kittens, and then they'd give them away. Well, Mitzi was one of the kittens
Aw.
that had been born to this cat at the grocery store. Was very unusual.
All
Now,
right, well,
where did you go to college and how did you decide where to go to college?
I went to the University of Michigan. And I went to the University of Michigan because part of my family had originally given money that ended up as part of the University of Michigan campus. I don't remember the details, but it was sort of a family thing. And I wanted to go as far away from home as my family would let me.
So lots of your
I went away
family
to
had gone to the University of Michigan. Lots of your family had gone to the University of Michigan?
No, I have two nephews who have PhDs from Michigan, and the whole family who were in Michigan. My sister's husband was a graduate of the University of Michigan,
Mhm.
and they lived in Detroit, outside of Detroit.
And
But I just
what did you study?
math and science, psychology, and then I went to NYU and got a master's in counseling, and then went back to Michigan, and I got a fellowship at the Detroit Children's Center, which was a part of an aspect of Michigan. And they did special, it was very special. They took only 12 students a year, and you worked with psychiatrists and everything to get training. It was very unusual.
Uh-huh.
did you do any wild things in college?
No, I wasn't wild.
You were focused on studying and doing what
Well,
you needed to do.
in those days, when I was studying, at one time, I chose to go to the Children's Center as opposed to getting my doctorate at Penn State. And one paid all of my tuition and got me a doctorate and paid gave me a scholarship. And when I went to Detroit, all I got was $60 a month. And I had to pay my tuition and all. And my parents were a little, they thought that was kind of stupid, but it was what I chose to do and what I wanted to do. And so I lived on $60 a month, except that my mother sent me, if I wrote a letter every week, my mother would send me $10, $2 a week. And so then when I paid $48 for my room and 2 meals a day, except for Sunday when I got only breakfast, which left me $14 a month to buy lunch and take care of all of my resources. I learned to be very unneeding.
Well, and this was the Depression, right? Or this was just the end of the Depression? I mean, you were born in 1917, so you were in,
This was just before the beginning of World War II.
yeah.
This was in.
What do you remember about the Depression? I mean, was the Depression hard for your family?
The Depression?
Was the Depression hard?
I have only one memory of the Depression. My mother at that time, women were wearing skirts, and I was to go on a, a hayride, and my mother said I should have pants to wear, ski pants, and I went to buy them. And my mother was sick in the hospital. I mean, sick in one room, and we'd had a lot of illness in the family. And when I went, my father said, "I'm sorry, you can't have it," which meant I couldn't go on the hayride. And my beloved brother, who had just gotten out of college, said, "I will buy them for her." And he bought me that's my big memory of the depression of a wonderful brother saving me.
And he didn't want to buy them because he couldn't afford them, or because he thought girls should not should not wear pants?
Well, it was just that in those days women wore skirts,
Yeah.
and you didn't. It wasn't until much later, even when I went around the world, women wore skirts. I didn't take pants with me. You wouldn't think of it. I look all scowly, but you wouldn't think of wearing. And today you wouldn't think of taking a skirt and going off into the jungles.
I love skirts. Actually, I'm so ready for summer because I wear skirts all the time. So I'm old fashioned like you,
Yeah.
Grandma.
Oh, well, once you start stories, I just keep on thinking. I just have more and more and more. That's
It's such a
unfortunate.
great memory. It's just incredible. We could
Well,
go on for hours.
I mean, each thing brings something else into mind. For example, in Malaysia, I was on a train from down to Singapore from what's the name of up there? President, not big city. Anyway, I was on a train and I had made my reservation. It was a night train and I had a sleeper. And when I got on the train, people in Thailand did not differentiate between men and women when they made reservations. And when I got in my train, I was scheduled to share my room with a priest. And so he decided he would stay with another friend somewhere else. But just, you think about crazy things. I don't think of that as crazy. It's just all of a sudden you have to deal with something that you never even thought would be a problem. Yeah.
Wait, so you have traveled to so many amazing places in your life. What would you say is your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Of all
It's tough, right?
I love South America. I mean, I love Asia and all of that, but I love South America. I like the joy de vivre of most Latinos.
Yeah.
They're so free. Like one New Year's Eve, I spent the time with all the Latinos, and they had their children. And when you went up and you danced with different people had invited me to be there, but you danced with kids and you danced with everybody. You didn't feel isolated because I was a single lady alone. And then afterward, we went over to where the Americans were and the English were, and the whole place where they had been was kind of deserted 2 minutes after New Year's, and they were all dressed and formal, and there was no excitement. You took another couple went back with us, and it was the party was still going on. That I liked about.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Don't you think enough?
No, there's one thing, Maryalice, you have to,
On the back.
Maryalice, why don't you tell Jessica Claudia, the story you told us last night about how you entered this family through my father's warm embrace.
You mean you haven't heard this? Well, I met your father at a Board of Education meeting. Some of the people in Owego thought we would make good company, and they knew that your grandmother had died. So they introduced us. And the next day, I got a call from your father asking me to go for a ride. And we got in his Carmen Ghia. I had a Carmen Ghia too. We got in his Carmen Ghia and we rode up into the mountains till he found a great big mud puddle. And then he stopped the car and opened the door. And as you probably know, that was his way of saying to all of you kids, we're going to have a serious conversation and I'm fixing it so you can't run away. So he said to me, and he talked about himself and he talked about his relationship with Jack and how he'd been. And then I had not been married and I'm 50 some years old. And he said to me, now I'm interested in marriage. And if you're not interested in marriage, I want to know right now because I don't want to waste my time interviewing you or courting you. I don't want to waste my time courting you. So which I had to say, I'm not averse to marriage, but there has to be a lot of other things that are right too. Whereupon he closed the door and we drove off.
And now is the beginning of something beautiful.
Oh, well, it turned out that we had some wonderful, wonderful times.
So why do you think you didn't get married before that? Was it because you were working so hard?
I think it was because I was really, I wasn't ready to flirt not that I flirted with John, but I wasn't in the point of wanting to turn my life over. You know, if somebody had come in and you had to invade my life rather than sort of, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'd met men and been friendly. I'm not saying I was a untamed female.
Yeah. And how did it feel having these 4 stepchildren in the early days of your marriage? How did it feel having these 4 stepchildren?
I am very grateful to your mother and father because of the way they accepted me. They did not in any way treat me as if I was not I was not a cherished person or a person who belonged to the family. I could go to New York, they could come up to the house, but I could go to New York and they would say, oh, hello, Mrs. Mayberry. Oh, they're home, they're waiting for you. And I never felt that I was not welcome.
Yeah.
But it was your dad and mother and your grandmother, your grandmother who was very sweet. It was those, they were the ones who did it.
Those were good days. You in your clown costume and yeah. I was very lucky to have 2 grandmothers, to have you and to have Grandma Virginia for a lot of those birthday parties when I was a small kid. Yeah.
Well, and I remember when we had one Halloween party, when your grandmother went up to the top of the building and came out on the side and pretended she was a ghost.
That was so unbelievable. And Jedediah climbed onto the other side of the railing of the 14th floor.
She was wonderful.
So scared. Yeah, that was incredible. in
Oh,
one
well-
of those amazing gowns that she had, some kind of white flowing thing.
Well, and then there was the week that your mother was entertaining people from Europe downstairs, and you were having a party, a Halloween party upstairs, and the people downstairs wanted to come upstairs to see the view of Central Park from the patio, and they came up and were playing changing chairs in the
Yeah.
vestibule there. And these people who'd never seen this before saw all of these children all dressed up in costume doing all these crazy things. And then there was the day that we walked across
Fifth Avenue and went into the fountains.
and went to the fountain and got all wet and then walked back. Oh, wonderful, wonderful memories of
Oh
you.
yeah, I mean, well, we had photographs of that. It was amazing. Yeah, I'm in a little pink tutu riding a bicycle.
Well, and being at the foot of the stairs in costume at the Met, and having somebody walk up and say, "May we take your picture too?" and decide, thinking that they could take my picture, that I was having my picture taken with these children. So they took my picture and went home.
Yes, these strange breeds of Americans to the foreign tourists at the Metropolitan Museum. Yeah,
Well,
but I guess we're used to that. We live in India. Whenever we go on the beach, there's somebody who wants to take a photograph of the kids, and they come too close to them and they pick them up without asking. And so we've been objects of tourism ourselves, objects of other people's impressions of new people.
all the pictures that I have taken are in the hall. I mean, on a wall. They're in boxes on a wall in here in the house. So if you ever want any of those, you'll have to go look for them.
Yeah,
But they're labeled.
I definitely would. Oh, well, this has been beautiful.
I love you.
I should let you rest, but I love you too. I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and grateful to get to do this, that we get to see each other because of this incredible technology. I can be sitting in Goa, India, and you're in Clemson, South Carolina.
No, well, I wish I didn't look so old and decrepit, but that's what
You
I am.
look beautiful and you sound amazing.
Well, the fortunate thing is that I have my mind, that it hasn't gone completely berserk.
Hasn't gone remotely berserk.
And please remember.
You remember the name of the president of Malaysia 60 years ago. Who knows those kinds of things? Let me see, can I remember it? What you said 10 minutes ago? President Samosa, you said. So I can remember it for 10 years. I can remember it for 10 minutes, President Samosa, but you've remembered it for 60 years.
I remember your birthday when you came to my birthday party.
Yeah, that was so much fun. That was such a great party. That was really, really a great party.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I came for that. And we had so much fun. I mean, the way that Christina was here, and I mean, I hadn't seen Christina and her husband like ever really. And it was really fun. We partied a lot. And so I saw how the Mayberrys can drink, all of us. There was a lot of drinking in that hotel room until late into the night.
Well, I think you're beautiful. And I'm grateful to have you as a granddaughter, and I admire what you're doing beyond all of it. I just think it's wonderful. That isn't the word. It's extraordinary what you are making of your life.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's been an incredible thing to be part of, and
It takes
to
an incredible.
have a hand in building. Yeah, it is. It is really impactful and important and of the moment. Yeah, I'm very, very grateful. I've been able to do this, and I'm inspired by having a world traveling grandmother.
Well, give your husband a hug for me. I'm very grateful that he's taken such wonderful care of you all these years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been, you know, it's amazing to me what you've done with your life and how you've made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no regrets. I think I'm really glad I've been able to have this thing that's meaningful for people, for society, to have that at the center of my life. It's turned out
Well,
good so far, and nobody knows what tomorrow brings, but it's turned out pretty good so far.
but remember, keep open your mind, look at your horizons, and you may find tomorrow may be wonderfully different and tomorrow may be better than ever.
Yes.
Bye-bye, dear.
All right, you all have a wonderful time there. Wonderful rest of the day.
And here's a hug for you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Claudia. Bye, Mom and Dad. Not sure where everybody's gone.
Here's, I think Claudia's out wandering.
Wandering. All right,
Yeah.
have a great day.
And when
Mom's not here. Mom had a little iPhone problem, and she's got to either, she's trying to get it repaired, or we're gonna have to get her another one, which is fine.
she had what?
She has an iPhone problem.
Oh,
It got closed in the door of that van.
oh,
Oh,
We'll show
really?
you. It's a risky place. There's a risky little thing in the van, which we'll show you when you get here. Did you see my thing, Jess, about the this article in the Times talking about gardens, public gardens, and there's one in Dallas, and it may be just, I was looking at it, and there's this festival that will be going on at the time that you guys arrive. So, you know, maybe you can get off this long flight, throw stuff in our van, and we can go to a beautiful garden together.
Okay, great. We are very excited.
Yeah, we are too.
Can't wait. It's been 15 months.
Yeah, and you go to the Andamans when?
This Sunday, so it's
This
Tuesday
Sunday, yeah,
night here. So we have a very busy 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You go then. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
This was a
Bye.
good idea, interviewing Maryalice.
Yeah, this is really fun. I'm gonna put it on YouTube if that's okay with you. And then we'll email it to everybody. I think I probably even have everybody's email address from 3 years ago.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah, I mean, yes, I was gonna tell, you know, my sisters and brothers about it, but if you can make it accessible, that'll be great.
Yeah, yeah. It's a long file. Now I just hope to heaven it's worked. Let's